Welcome back. Thanks for being with us. Tulsi Gabbard's nomination for Director of National Intelligence might be in trouble. Republican lawmakers were among those skeptical of the former Democrat's views on Russia and government whistleblower, that's putting it in one terminology, Edward Snowden. Others describe Edward Snowden as a far more difficult thing than a whistleblower. To discuss this and Kash Patel and RFK Jr. and some other topics, I want to bring in our political panel, Sabrina Rodriguez and Finn Gomez. Sabrina, national politics reporter at The Washington Post. Finn, of course, our political director at CBS News. All right, I want to read to you both this dramatically. I'm not going to play the soundbite, I'm just going to read it. This is Josh Hawley, Republican senator from Missouri, on Fox last night. I'm worried by what I'm hearing from some of my Republican colleagues. This is about Tulsi Gabbard. I'm worried that her nomination may be in jeopardy. That sounds like what it sounds like. Yeah, I mean, Finn?
And people close to the White House have told me and who have been involved with the Gabbard push to get her nominated, to get her passed and confirmed. Have said that yes, that there could be some trouble ahead for Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, it's not because she was hoping for a Pete Hegseth type of confirmation hearing where the Republicans like toe the line, come and back her up.
Yeah.
And if you're seeing some support erode on the Republican side, it doesn't bode well at this point.
And Sabrina, the big difference for Tulsi Gabbard is she does not have the full court press that Pete Hegseth got. And with that full court press, he still needed J.D. Vance, the vice president, to cast the tie-breaking vote.
Absolutely not. Tulsi is not being afforded the same full court press, the same show of support from the president. I think that's a key piece here too. We don't hear Donald Trump talking all day about his support for Tulsi Gabbard, how much he's rooting for her and pushing for her. That is something we saw consistently over the weeks before Pete Hegseth's confirmation. I think there is an awareness amongst Republicans that she is by far the most endangered, but she's also in this period of time where, again, so much focus was on Pete Hegseth, but now we're getting to those nominations. The touchier ones, which I know we're going to be talking more about, but RFK Jr., Kash Patel, her position as well, and I think there's for members of Congress right now, for senators, there are a lot of questions around her past comments and her lack of real justification for them.
Point on that, her past comments and curiosity or hesitation about those past comments was in evidence when Kansas Republican Senator Jerry Moran asked Gabbard about Russia. Let's listen to that.
I want to make certain that in no way does Russia get a pass in either your mind or your heart, or in any policy recommendation you would make or not make.
Senator, I'm offended by the question because my sole focus, commitment, and responsibility is about our own nation, our own security, and the interests of the American people.
And Finn, another thing that came up, Edward Snowden. Just to remind the audience, former NSA contractor, he leaked 1 million classified documents and has been defended by Tulsi Gabbard, and yesterday took to social media to defend her nomination as Director of National Intelligence. That's part of this conversation as well.
No, absolutely. And I mean, as you said at the beginning of this segment, for some, a whistleblower. For others,
traitor.
Absolutely.
That's the terminology applied by those protective of U.S. intelligence.
And I'm old enough to remember that when Republicans believed that he was a traitor, and the fact that like that still exists. I mean, and I'm sorry, but him posting in support of her doesn't really help her at all, frankly. So
she could very much more use a post from President Trump.
Exactly.
Sabrina.
Yes, and her answer on the question of Edward Snowden was not a compelling argument, was not a forceful one, similar to on Russia. She really tried to, navigate against it. I even, noted it down, where she said it would not be her responsibility to advocate for any actions related to Snowden. That doesn't sound like you are forcefully against him in this.
And it's not like she's not going for, this is not Interior Secretary, right? This is specifically because of this. It's
Director of National Intelligence is the repository for all the intelligence agencies, the chief analytical office at the top of the intelligence pyramid of information.
Exactly, and Edward Snowden is someone that if you want this job, you have to go firmly against that, I believe, and she did not do that.
Sabrina, I want to ask you about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., also different than Tulsi Gabbard. He has a separate, definable MAGA world support base, make America healthy again. Whatever troubles he's having in the confirmation hearing, and he had several. He couldn't answer basic questions about Medicare, Medicaid. He was kind of holding to this idea, I'm for science about vaccines, but that didn't seem to please Republican senators and certainly not Democratic senators. Yet I still think because of this wellspring of MAGA-related support, RFK Jr., not a cinch to be confirmed, but you can't rule him out.
I do not think you can rule him out at all. I think all eyes will definitely be in the coming days on Senator Cassidy, who's the top
Bill Cassidy
Republican.
from Louisiana.
He, a physician, he brought up, his own track record, his own, past and raised questions about, Kennedy's anti-vax past and the fact that what was coming out of his mouth in the hearings this week does not match what we have countless numbers of videos and countless numbers of commentary that he has made over the years, and now is just trying to say, oh, no, vaccines, yes, I support them, I wouldn't change it. But the facts are the facts, what he has been saying for years and things that he's been saying recently as a few months ago. So I think we need to be looking at Senator Cassidy as one of those key Republican votes. And again, I think, we were talking about this off camera where it's like, okay, is there a question of will they get through? And I think for these three, there is a real open question if it's going to be doable.
And the third of the three would be Kash Patel at FBI. Very quickly, Sabrina, I'd like your thoughts, if you could, distilling all the actions President Trump has taken regarding the federal workforce.
It's been so much in the last, I think, for anyone watching at home, I feel like there is an overwhelming sense of, okay, there has been so much going on. And I think for us, too, we're grappling with how much news has happened in the last hour. Right. Or, okay, I can talk to you about what Trump said yesterday, but he said 5 other things in the last 30 minutes. So I think really there is this question of what exactly is going to happen with the workforce. He made very clear on the campaign trail how much he wanted to reduce it, how he wanted to, get rid of some of the leases of public workspace. He wanted people to come back to work. I think there's a question of the legality of it, of how doable it is, but that he wants to do it, he has made clear he does.
2.1 million people work in the federal workforce. 70% of them, in one way or another, have occupations related to national security. Just keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. Sabrina Rodriguez, Finn Gomez, thanks so much.
Nice talk.